All right. Okay. Yeah, you know how it goes. Welcome to Nerdy for 30, podcast where comedian Tim Keck and I talk about nerdiest things, 30th minutes. My name's Kim Bauer. Today we're talking about Morbius. We're gonna get to it. I want to call out three things up front in this episode. Three things that are going to make the audience and my co-hosts disappointed in me. First off, I need to complain about this. We've mentioned on the show before that there is a movie theater that we have found. We are not saying where it is in New York City, but it is the ideal movie theater. Uh, I went without Spencer and Tim. I betrayed the crew. I went on a date with my girlfriend Lauren, and that's on me. That's on me. I should not have done that. I should have let them know beforehand. We should have gone to a movie theater in Astoria. I tread on hallowed ground with blasphemous shoes. I don't have an analogy for it, but I know they're not happy with me. The listener also has every right to not be happy because Tim Keck cannot make it today. He has a bad migraine. We're taping this episode in his honor so that he can get something out of having seen the movie Morbius. And third, and maybe most importantly, the thing that is going to make people the most upset with me. I did not hate the movie Morbius.
Oh boy.
Spencer is already so disappointed. Spencer Pazer is in today, filling in for Tim Keck.
Wow, way to bury that one when we watched it. Jesus Christ. Before we get started, I would like to stand in for Tim Keck here, noting that when we went to our screening of Morbius at our non-traditional theater, similar chain, we'll leave breadcrumbs, I guess. Similar chain, not the location we prefer, and we had confronted, Tim and I decided to confront Kevin about his most recent transgression to take his girlfriend of a decade,
yeah,
on a date.
You would think it would be long enough. Turns out not long enough.
Yeah,
to avoid this being a transgression.
No, not long enough. And Tim's criticism that he noted was, Kevin, don't you see this person all the time? You're going on a date. We're the date. Spencer and I are the date. And not only that, you could have lied to us about it. You could have said, "Oh, we went to Angelica or something," or some other. I guess I just crossed off Angelica from the list of theaters that people have to guess about, which is our go-to. But you could have just said I went somewhere else, but you just had to. You're compelled, which I understand. If the listeners eventually figure out which theater we frequent and experience it for themselves, I too would imagine they would frequent that theater. But let's get to the crux of today's discussion and why you failed to tell Tim and I, after sitting through this horrendous screening of a movie, that you did not hate it. No, please go on.
I think I was upfront about this. I said very clearly that it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be, which it wasn't. It was
fair.
It was more watchable than I expected. I was expecting. Did you ever see the Josh Trank Fantastic Four?
I did not see it in its entirety. I'm sure that I flicked through the channels and saw like 20 or 30 minutes of it on FX and then was like, not for me.
Sure. Yeah. I call it Fant Four Stick because of the way it was stylized in the title. It's just an easy way to delineate it. Fant Four Stick might be the absolute worst movie I have ever seen. Because at least with some things like, your classic bad movies, The Room, Troll 2, you can glean some fun out of how bad the movies are. There was nothing to even laugh at in Fant Four Stick. It was just
and you're saying
and
that
to watch.
Fant Four Stick is worse than the other two movies.
Oh yeah, Fant Four Stick. I'm not talking worst superhero movie I've ever seen. I'm talking worst movie I've ever seen. This thing is an affront to cinema. It is its crime is that it's dull. That's the thing. Is because it hits a point where, like, if something goes far enough in the spectrum to bad, you can at least laugh at it. And
sure.
Yeah, Fant Four Stick is just like it's like it is the origin in a graph. It just nothing happens. It's like, I don't know. It's gray. It's 50% gray. It's TV static. It's just Andy Warhol once made an 8-hour film that is just footage of the Empire State Building, and the entire point of the experimental film was to quote unquote watch time pass. That's basically what Fan Force Stick
Ah,
was.
well,
So I was expecting Morbius to be like that, and I was pleasantly surprised.
see, I'm glad you brought up this comparison to Fan Four Stick because the way you just described your Fan Four Stick experience, save for one improvisational line from Al Madrigal, was how I felt about the entire Morbius experience.
Are you're of course referring to you're a doctor, you're used to seeing the insides of people.
Funniest, most inventive, original line in the entire movie, which I'm sure he delivered on take 7 out of his ass, you know, and yes, that's how I felt the entire time watching that movie. It was simply a passive. We went into the movie when there was still daylight, and we came out, and it was nighttime, and that's all that happened in between was that the sun went down.
So so I think like overall Morbius, people, if you care about superhero stuff at all, you knew this was going to be a train wreck. Like they've been basically telegraphing how big of a train wreck this is going to be for like a
Fair.
year now, right? Like
Mhm.
this has been pushed back a full year. You don't do that if your movie's a homer.
Well, I
What
think
were
it.
you expecting?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it could. I feel like it's COVID related that they did a lot of the pushbacks.
True.
I
Yeah.
mean, we still don't have Top Gun. That's going to be over a year delayed.
And I
And
maybe this
supposedly
is
that'll be a good movie. I don't know,
yeah,
but
maybe that's foolish of me, but I think it might be good. But yeah, Spence, what were you expecting with Morbius? Like going into this, how did you think it was going to go?
well, I went in with the full expectation that I would not enjoy it, that it would be poorly written and strangely acted, and that I just would not enjoy it. And all those things seem to come true, but even more so, were just glaring storytelling devices that just didn't even pan out or work. Or on the flip side, glare obvious storytelling devices that were meant to feel like they were going to be a surprise and they weren't in any way whatsoever.
So just
It
way
was
too
it's
formulaic.
one of those movies like my mother could watch and be like and because my mother never stops talking when we're all watching a movie together, and she'll just ask questions. Oh, is this going to happen? Is this? And then she's just predicting the film as it plays out. And if my mom is right 100% of the time, that movie is terrible because the idea is you want to surprise my mother. You want to give her an experience she has not had before. And if and she is not, I mean, listen, my parents are consumers of film and television. They are, but they're by no means like avid cinemaphiles. So like the average story should be able to, like, I mean, listen, she liked Bohemian Rhapsody. I like, she's not perfect, but but this is a movie that she would be able to plot out every single step and probably write better dialogue. And she's not a professional in the film industry whatsoever. So, I mean, let's. I have a list. I have a minor list that I put together, but I kind of want to, and I will give you points for. I will give the movie points for small things, but I'll elaborate that on. I want to hear your what surprised you, what made you feel, oh, this isn't that as bad as I thought it was going to be. Did you hope it was going to be bad? These types of things.
Ooh. Oh, that's tough. Did I hope it was going to be bad? Because I don't think I've ever gone into a movie before hoping it was going to be bad, but I also don't think I've ever gone into a movie before Morbius where I was so certain that I was walking in front of a firing squad. Like the process of buying the tickets to going into the theater. When we bought the tickets for this, we were the only 3 people in a massive Union Square movie theater. Uh and it was empty.
I'm
Like
sorry,
I
didn't we just see that Tom Holland movie? You didn't expect the same thing with that?
No, I was definitely open to Uncharted being good.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
but It is funny you tie that together because between Morbius and Uncharted being released in theaters, I don't know what trailers are gonna play before movies anymore. It's been only those two trailers for like the past
That's a good
18
point.
months.
They really have been.
Yeah, so for Morbius, I don't think I hoped it was gonna be bad. I expected it to be, like I said, unwatchable along the lines of Fan Four Stick. And instead, what I found, what impressed me, was that it felt like a superhero movie that would have been considered decent in the year 2002.
When there
Like,
were only 3 superhero movies out
yeah, it was
that
like
had come out,
X-Men, Blade,
and
and I
Spider-Man
think,
1.
yeah, Spider-Man 1, depending on when that got pushed back because of
It
9/11.
would still be at the bottom of that list of all of those.
It would definitely be at the bottom of the list, but people would have been, I guess, compared to those, it's not like those are all obviously good movies. Especially Blade. I mean, fucking come on, that movie
Blade
holds up
3 is
so
better than
well.
this movie.
Absolutely, it's better than this movie. But I guess I'm saying like I think it's cut from that earlier cloth from a time where those things weren't as well worn. Like those wagon ruts weren't dug as deep into the soil. And
Sure.
so like at the very least you can watch it. That's what impressed me is that there was only one point in time in the movie where I wished I could pull my phone out and just be on my phone for a little bit. And for the rest of the movie I felt
That's
decent watching
terrible.
it.
Okay, wait. Um, should we say the should we briefly summarize the plot of this movie at
Yeah,
the very least?
absolutely.
Please, by all
Oh yeah.
means.
Okay. So I'll just freeball this. So Dr. Michael Morbius is a famous world figure for creating an artificial blood, which is blue, which comes up later in the movie.
Mhm.
He is, however, plagued by some sort of a blood disease because of dramatic irony, and is seeking a cure. Because something about bats bites, vampire bat bites, they're able to transfer an anticoagulant into their victims so that they can drink their blood more easily. He thinks that combining bat DNA with human DNA might lend a way to cure this disease. Now, that willfully ignores the fact that we're talking about bat bites, not just bats. He's not just saying bats have anticoagulants, he's saying bat bites. So he's not trying to merge his own DNA with bat bite DNA. He's just trying to merge his DNA with bats in general. Um, his like longtime friend from the like hospital that he was growing up in, older version played by Matt Smith, character's name is Milo, is afflicted by a similar blood disease. Michael Morbius is trying to save both of them effectively. He's aided by a doctor who is, it's not really clear how he met the doctor that works with him, but she's kind of like the will they, won't they romantic interest, and she loves him, which is why she's willing to boat into international waters with him to conduct this vampire bat experiment.
There's
At which
so
point,
much I want to talk about. Go on.
I mean, at which point in time he accidentally turns himself into a vampire, kind of. He just turns himself into a half bat. Um, Kills the mercenaries on the boat that were like bad guys to start with. Um,
We'll get to that. Well, I mean, please keep going because this is bringing up so many things I want to talk about.
he goes back to Manhattan, where he discovers that he needs to ingest blood frequently at an increasing pace, or else he will, I
The
guess,
blue
vamp
blood.
all the way out. Well,
Yes,
he
because he doesn't want to drink the red blood.
right. Yeah, he's specifically trying to drink his own artificial blood that he created because he doesn't think that it would be right to consume human blood. And if he doesn't do this, I guess like it's never the stakes are never really established, but I guess he just vamps out permanently is the assumption. He just goes full monster. Um, Matt Smith finds out what he did and is jealous because Morbius doesn't want to turn him into a vampire too. So Matt Smith somehow, when Morbius is gone from his lab, manages to take the serum that Morbius developed himself, despite the fact that Matt Smith is not a trained medical professional and did not have access
Another
to any of the
another
tools.
great point I would like to talk about.
Massive plot holes. Um, Matt Smith then is just enjoying being free of his debilitating blood disorder, whereas Michael Morbius seems plagued by it and burdened by it, and they kind of have vampire battles all around the city until Michael Morbius finally determines that Matt Smith is too much of a threat and reluctantly kills him, and then takes to the skies as a vampire anti-hero. There's a few other things that happen in there, with like Al Madrigal being a superhero detective, I guess.
Oh, and Tyrese and his partner
And
Tyrese.
Tyrese, yeah, can't leave Tyrese out of it.
Well, you subconsciously left them out of the summary because they, in fact, have no bearing on the plot whatsoever.
No, they were
As
very much. They are so clearly meant to be the connective tissue between whatever like supernatural universe Sony's setting up with Venom. They mentioned like this is like that thing we saw in San Francisco. It's in the trailers.
yeah,
You've seen it before. But
yeah.
I mean, going through the synopsis brought up something I read online that I wholeheartedly agree with, which is that one of the things that actually does work in this movie is Matt Smith and Jared Leto's relationship. I buy them as friends. They have good chemistry together as actors.
Okay, that I can agree with.
And I think this whole movie is a lot better if it's an outright love story between those two characters. There are moments where it feels
One
like maybe that's what's going on.
100% better.
And like
One,
Matt Smith,
but there's no way Sony does not have the balls to do something like that.
no,
They would
because they couldn't
never.
release it in fucking China and Russia. Like,
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what do we care about releasing anything in Russia? But you no, you are 100% right about that. The story would have been served if their relationship had been complicated by love.
yeah.
Now,
I mean, I
uh,
think
now
that was
that was a
there.
yeah, that was a fantastic spark notes of the entire movie,
Thank you. I
Kevin.
can't believe I
I
remember the
must say
whole thing.
you really did. That was a pretty fantastic. You even got coagulant. The word you broke out the word coagulant, and I was like, oh boy,
I've
he
been trying to
remembers
slip that
everything.
into every Nerdy for 30 so far.
Yeah, couple of things. I mean, let's just. Oh boy. So what do we open up? What was the movie open up? It opens up with their flying the helicopter into the Batcave, right? And it's
Yes.
always and it's the hills and it's in Spanish. The text is in Spanish at the bottom of the screen, and it says like hills de los muertes. It's always. I mean, we're still doing this in movies where everything dangerous, like quote unquote dangerous, or a place that is not supposed to be inhabited by people, always has to come with the moniker of death or bad. like
Yeah.
we're so beyond this, the hills of the muertes, or like the terrible evil dungeon. Like it can't just be a like Runyon Canyon or like
I was
something
just going to say,
something
you
like
never see a
something.
mysterious mountain and it just is like Jackson, Alabama.
Yeah, exactly. It's like these places can also be scary. Like it's already established. Like the visual mood of a place can tell us whether or not it's scary. We don't need an additional like physical line of dialogue telling us that there's death associated with this place. Not only that, then scene, the ensuing shot of the cave is like this long shot that kind of pans through the cave and meets us at the mouth of the cave in it, and it's meant to show you how many like of these vicious bats. And the entire shot is VFX, without a doubt.
Mhm.
But it is also the darkest VFX shot I have ever seen in my entire life. It may as well not even exist because
Yeah.
I mean we were in the theater. It was pitch black, and I was like squinting to look at the screen. I'm like,
I could not see shit.
not a thing. And then they go through the whole thing that everyone sees in the trailer where he catches the bats for some reason, gives nobody a warning. I think he gives a guy money for a machete just to cut his hand open. He doesn't even say, "Can I borrow the machete so I can cut my hand?" He just buys the machete to cut whatever, whole thing. And then because it's very deceiving because in the trailer it makes it seem like the bats are going to cause him to transform.
Mhm.
And then it turns out that they're going to go do this whole offshore science routine, which that whole scene is I can get into for other reasons. But before they even do that, his love interest comes. They're talking in his laboratory, which is across the hall, which is visibly across the hall from what seems to be the only patient in this hospital under
Yes.
Dr. Morbius's care. which is a small young black girl, and she's adorable, and she's dying of what we assume to be the same blood disease that Dr. Michael Morbius is suffering from. And his lab, which is easily viewable from her room, which they give us a shot of his love interest peering over her shoulder from the child's bedside to see the entire lab, which is mysteriously and has in the center of it a mysterious cylindrical tube from top to bottom, which is just filled with bats. And I mean, and she approaches the conversation that they have as if this is taboo, which, of course, in any hospital, having a cylindrical capsule that is floor to ceiling solid with bats would be strange for a zoologist that studies bats. I mean, and this door to the lab is not even locked. I mean, not even remotely. It's wide open.
No.
Anyone can walk in. This research that he's doing does not seem to be that controversial if he's just got this whole setup in this bat lab right across from his most important patient in this hospital. It's
It's
her
like
and the other nurse that dies. Those are the only three people that work in the entire hospital in the entire movie.
yeah, it's like the purloined letter. He's just hiding it right out in the open.
Yeah, but it's not even hiding. It's just like she hits a bunch of numbers on a keypad, and then boom, it lights up, and the glass becomes unfrosted, and then a flurry of bats form a tornado in this cylinder, as if like to prove a point that she's like, remember this? Tick 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 tick. Like, it was bizarre. I mean, the exposition was painful, so painful. And that was the first line of the movie. That was what we bet on. Is the first line going to be exposition or not? And what was the first line? It was like, we shouldn't be. That's right. We shouldn't be here after dark. First
Yeah.
line of the movie.
Yep.
Great. And by the way, they were not there after dark. That line did not pay off in any way whatsoever.
Ah, fuck, it didn't. I mean,
Yeah,
there's like nuggets in this. We've done before a segment called Rewritables. I really think I don't want to, but I think if someone sat down and picked a couple parts of this movie, there
I
are
think you want to write
things
this movie.
there. I feel like I have to. I feel like there's
Okay.
something. I'm driven.
Yeah.
I'm called because there's something about it where it's like I don't know. I think at the very least it could have been. It sits in a similar camp with Venom for me. I don't think it was as I use the word good lightly here. I don't think it was as good as the first Venom. I think it was way better than the second Venom. I think Venom 2 was absolutely appalling.
Uh,
Um,
it's in the pantheon of what were they thinking?
yeah,
Everyone.
definitely. Um, is it worth going into beefs and thieves? Let's do it. Let's do beefs. Let's go into beefs real quick. And
Oh boy.
Where's the beef?
what do you got?
I mean, my beef with this movie is, I mean, virtually every scene is there's a problem with everything. I mean, even all right. Here's one of my biggest beefs. So he creates the serum. He turns himself into this half vampire thing. He kills these mercenaries on the boat that I would assume were supposed to be working for him, which was what like they came in so hot and bothered. Let me go check on the doctor, and then before you know it, they're trying to kill everybody. Not to mention, I don't imagine doing. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but doing science on a boat in the ocean is not necessarily a stable environment for doing science under a microscope. If
Sure.
I were to conduct an experiment like that, I might imagine things would go awry. Just on the fact, like, it's an ocean where the waves you're moving around. I don't care how big the boat is, it's not going to work. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky. But okay, but the real one. So he makes the serum, injects himself. He's a vampire. We're back on the mainland. He's got those two extra vials, and we get shots of him carrying these vials, placing these vials into the container, and then it's assumed that that somebody else has become used the serum, and it's clear that Milo is the person, and that he probably has taken a vial while he was in there helping him the first time he sees him, locked himself in that cage, and he gives him the blood, and he's like, "Look what you become," and all that stuff. And then we basically get that confirmation. But then they don't do a shot where there is a vial missing. The vial is never missing. And in
Yes.
fact, there is a shot where after the fact that it has been established that there is someone else who is out there as a vampire, we're not yet sure who it is. Dr. Michael Morbius walks back into the lab, past the vials, and I made a point. I was like, I looked at it, both vials were still there. Like they couldn't even get the continuity right to be like, let's take a vial out of the scene. Or not even like paint it out in post. Like something, just to be like, look, it's missing. Or give us a shot of it missing. Like that, an easy reshoot, which I'm sure they did plenty of reshoots for this movie.
That's
And
disappointing.
it's just like it's frustrating. Like they're gonna try and do all this other stuff in the movie, try and pay off. Like you didn't even get to the doctor that raised them both, who is like a strange background character who is in the beginning of the movie and then mysterious and then suddenly at the end. And for some reason we're supposed to the movie wants us to feel like this is an important character when we care so little for this character. And especially because of how Milo just like decides to treat this character in the end. And it's clear that although this character, although the cure that Morbius creates that turns him and Milo into these monsters influences them to do certain things. Like Morbius clearly goes like, "Oh, killing is bad." Like it's not like Milo before was like, "Killing is good," and I want to kill. And it was all of it, and they made it seem like the only reason that Milo would have ever wanted to be this crazed lunatic is because we saw him got beat up by those kids in the beginning because he lost his letter.
Right.
Like, oh, he was picked on, so of course he's going to be like really dangerous and crazy. I mean,
He had no
I guess
power
my
in the
biggest gripe
beginning.
is that nothing was earned at all in this movie. Nothing. The love story wasn't earned. The becoming none of the exposition was earned. There were no payoffs. Nothing was really paid off properly. It is a mess, top to
Yeah.
bottom.
I'll uh I'll follow you on that. Also, and while we're talking about things that haven't been paid off, I got a beef of my own.
Where's the beef?
Uh he calls Matt Smith Milo? We don't really get a reason for why he does that. He when Matt Smith's character is a child shows up to the hospital that they both grow up in, they say like, "Oh, this is Lucian, your new bunkmate," and pretty much immediately, young Jared Leto is like, "Oh, hey Milo," and Lucian's like, "My name's not Milo," and young Jared Leto is like, "Well, the kid before you was Milo, and there was a Milo before
Yeah,
that. There was a
total
Milo before
douchebag.
that." It doesn't mean anything. It
Means
absolutely doesn't
nothing.
mean anything. We get a
It,
moment where when young Matt Smith's character starts dying, young Jared Leto calls him Lucian by his name. So you would assume, maybe this is symbolic of
mhm.
young Jared Leto starting to see him as a real human being. No, we cut to like 25 years later. He's still calling him fucking Milo.
Yeah, he's still giving him the douche name. Like it's not. It wasn't like cute like the way it was introduced. It
No.
was like here's a kid who's an asshole who's not even calling another kid by his name. This kid has a debilitating blood disease. He shows up to the only hospital in Italy or wherever the fuck they are, and his bunkmate can't even call him by his real name, just calls him by the last Milo who was there before. I mean, it's and then how is that name supposed to be endearing for the future?
It's
Any of their future interactions?
it's bizarre and it mars what is otherwise maybe the only thing in the movie that works, which is their relationship. Which I will say one other thing if we can transition to thieves now as well.
I think you're a thief.
Um I am not a special effects guy. I did think that the special effects in this movie were about half good, half bad. I started holding myself back halfway through that because I remembered some terrible ones.
Mhm.
The effects of him using the radar and flying around the city, those were terrific. That looked so cool. That was really truly like this is like blockbuster level special effects. The ones that looked really bad are when his ears got all frilly
Mhm.
and when his face kind of got vampire-y when he started using the powers. I'm not a fan
Mhm.
of CGI faces on normal people. I think go practical effects.
Yeah. I was gonna say the only thing in the CGI, I mean, the CGI was really not great in general, but the thing that I liked that they tried to do was, this is the only thing that I was like, "This is interesting," was, Matt Smith and Jared Leto's, like, the showing their abilities to change their faces between the human face and the vampire face, and, like, how that kind of, like, led like, they did that they used it to a degree where it was, like, showing Matt Smith's character a little bit. Like,
Mhm.
okay, he that was the only thing in this entire movie that maybe did any good, but the problem was, like, the effects were not consistent. Like, sometimes the face would be, like, really good, and then they would just, like, throw it in there for effect, be like, "Look what we can do."
Yeah.
And then that final fight just looked like the first fight in Venom, where it was just a fucking mess, and you like couldn't see a goddamn thing. You didn't know who was hitting who because the first couple like tussles they had, where they're really just like kind of doing the vampire version of shoving each other around, well, were not bad because it kind of made it seem like they're working something out instead of like trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
And then it turned into that final fight where he's like, he comes up with a cure that's really like a stake to the heart in like 5 minutes. Everything is every problem has a solution so quickly in this movie. There is absolutely no time spent on like trying to like get us into the idea of what they're doing. I mean, we
He
God,
literally finds a lab. He finds a
yeah.
lab
Oh,
that's
that
abandoned, like
oh
a fully
oh so
stocked laboratory
don't
abandoned
even
in the
wait.
NYC subway. Ugh. Ah, man. Well, is there anything, Spencer, that you liked about this movie? Any thieves?
Um, Matt Smith. I
There we
think that
go.
I think he's the only thing I liked about the movie. I think he did well with the material that he had. I mean, he's clear. I don't know if you've seen The Crown, you know Matt Smith is a quality performer. Um,
Oh, man. I knew he
but
was a quality performer. I'm a Doctor Who guy. So
oh,
Matt
see,
Smith, near and
I
dear to my heart.
never watched Doctor Who. There's a lot to catch up on there. I don't know if I can start with that now.
You got like 50 years worth, yeah. But
Yeah, I
man,
don't think I'm gonna get to it.
my one thing with
All right.
Matt Smith being in this is I'm so scared that his presence in this knocks him out of the running to play Mr. Fantastic because I
Oh, he's
think he
done.
would be the
Absolutely.
perfect Mr. Fantastic.
Who did I? You're probably right. I feel like I saw a short list of who would be on Mr. Fantastic, and I forget. Oh, there is one thing I did. I did a little bit of research on this. I read it. I read an article where someone interviewed the director, and he asked him like, and this is a, and if the director is confirming a question like this, you can you can safely assume that it was 5 times worse than the confirmation of the question.
Oh no.
And to fill in the audience, Jared Leto's blood disease, before he is cured, basically he has a severe muscle atrophy, so he walks around with two walking canes on each arm. And the question was it true? Did Jared Leto simulate his walking condition in between takes? And the director just said, "Yeah, that was that was true." And especially when it had came time for him to use the restroom, so it would end up taking him 45 minutes in between shots to go to the restroom. But they made a deal with him to put him in a wheelchair, to wheel him around set in a wheelchair so he can go to the bathroom faster.
How often was he going to the bathroom?
It doesn't matter. Even well, listen, like on film sets, like going to the bathroom, especially if you're number one, is a thing that is of course allowed, but it is also like the day is built on a 12-hour schedule often, so time is usually short for things like that. Which is why like it's a big deal. Now your average person goes to the restroom fairly uh, with normal expedience to return to the job. Now Jared Leto, I mean, I don't know if he's doing it as a bit, like just to. uses power over people, or because it's part of his acting process, but to simulate and stay in character and to take that long to go to the bathroom, and for the director to then admit that was the case and say they came to a compromise where they would wheel him from set to the restroom in a wheelchair is just astonishing. It's tremendous. I mean, I have never been on a set where a concession that egregious has been made, and I have seen some things, but I can only imagine the discussion that's going on but between the crew on those days where it's just like we're late because what, like none of us get to go home today because of for what reason
Oh
or
my
whatever.
god, dude. Uh, I heard
So yeah.
I heard one other thing from the director too. People were asking about the post-credit scenes. The
Oh
post-credit
god.
scenes, you've probably seen them on TikTok by now, but the Vulture from the MCU is in the Morbius verse now. And that sucks. Because I think the Vulture for my money is the best MCU villain so far. And to see him in such a bad place is just truly heartbreaking. I would never wish that on Michael Keaton, much less anyone. But the director confirmed that they had no idea what was going on in No Way Home. They were not privy to that information. So when this film was originally scheduled to come out before No Way Home, they just didn't have an explanation for how we got there. There was no explanation whatsoever. So the rift in the sky was actually a blessing in disguise for them because they had a justification now.
I mean, that rift was clearly added 2 months ago. I
Yeah.
mean, like, by the way, Kevin delivering all this information with his hands like clasped above his head.
It hurts. It
Just
hurts to think
solely
about.
so disappointed.
Oh man. Well, should we pack it in for this one?
Yeah, I think your exasperation says it all. You at starting this podcast go, oh, I didn't hate it, and you just went, oh boy. I mean, come on.
I'm remembering all the ways in which it hurt me. It's been a while. It's like a bad relationship. I'm
Yes,
thinking about the person again and I'm thinking about the bad times and now I'm like, maybe it's for the best.
it's been a while. It's been 48 hours.
And it's the shortest amount of time that it will ever be ever again.
Yeah.
Well, Spencer, thank you very much for joining us today. Anything to plug? Want to plug what's that over there?
Yeah, sure. Still posting bird photos on what's that over there. Video content will come as soon as I get my act together and editing videos, and hopefully you can hear me more on this podcast or maybe another one in the future if I decide to go branch out on my own. Who knows? But I mean, never in competition. Never in competition. It would have
Of
to be
course.
something that, yeah.
Of course. You would never
No.
transgress as badly as I did.
No. Oh man. But no, I got to get myself a setup, and so I don't sound all like I'm talking on my headphones, which I am. But no, that's it. Where you can find me. I don't know. Should I talk more about myself, or is that enough?
Hey, if you want to. I think you got a big announcement about, I don't know if you want to say it on the pod, a big announcement about the union. Congrats,
I got
dude.
into the camera union. Yeah, I'm officially a local 600 New York stills photographer for set film and television sets. So I will be delivering you more gossip in the future as soon as I get on some more sets. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I like the text you today. I photographed your hometown hero, Gloria Steinem. That was interesting.
Amazing. Had a Spider-Man pen. I don't know if that's a
I had a
breach of an
Spider-Man
NDA.
pen.
Had a Spider-Man pen there.
I don't think it is.
Well, there we go. Oh, man.
Fantastic.
Spencer, thanks again. Everybody out there listening,
Thanks
thank
for
you as
having me.
well. Hopefully you just listened to this. Hopefully you didn't see Morbius. If you did, let us know what you thought about it. Was it worse than Fantastic? Was it better than we gave it credit for? Send us an email, nerdyfor30@gmail.com. No one ever has. Rate us on Spotify. Rate us on iTunes. 5 stars, 5 stars. Until then, stay nerdy, friends. Bye.